Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yance. This is episode 34, and it is all about The Undertaker. And I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite moments. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite matches. And I'm going to talk about some of my favorite music from The Undertaker. So, stay tuned. Now for me, The Undertaker has a special place. A special place for me in my wrestling lore. But since Survivor Series just ended, I wanted to talk a little bit about my thoughts on his send-off. I didn't really like it. I didn't feel it was... I felt it was too overdone. It was too much. If you're going to invite all these people to come down to the ring and thank him, and he's not even going to interact with them, I felt that killed the moment. It just made it look fake, and I did not like the way it was done. It could have been done in such a better way, but they didn't do that. They just clearly, I don't know. I feel like McMahon has lost touch with what the fans want and what he wants. And it was just too overdone for me. I'm going to tell you what my send-off for The Undertaker will be. The Last Ride and the Broken Skull Sessions 2. I felt like that was a good way to say goodbye to the Undertaker character. In more ways than one. I get why some fans are going to like it, but it didn't resonate with me. Now, before you get on there and say that I am just not an Undertaker fan, I'm going to tell you that is not the truth. So, let's begin with, for me, my favorite moments of The Undertaker. I really came into understanding The Undertaker in 1998. And actually, the first pay-per-view match I ever saw was WrestleMania 14, Kane versus The Undertaker. And I had never seen anything like that. These characters looked so just different. And so just out there. And Kane with his mask that just looked like leather or iron. He looked scary. This tiger-like, vicious character. And then seeing Undertaker come down with the Batman-like cape and the druids, and just them parting like he's walking across the Red Sea, the parting of the Red Sea. So, for me, that will always be my image of what The Undertaker is. For a lot of people, it is the purple gloves or the gray gloves, the hat and the coat. For me, it is the guy walking down the aisle at WrestleMania 14 to face his brother. And looking back, I think that is one of the best storylines they ever did, because it started in June of 1997 and it carried all the way to March 1998 and beyond that. But in March 1998 was the destination, WrestleMania 14. To give The Undertaker his opponent, which would be Kane. And they introduced the idea of Kane as his brother. So to me, these two are so entwined in my vision of The Undertaker. And as you can see in that storyline, Paul Bearer is talking about this secret. And then you find out that the secret is actually that Undertaker has a brother named Kane, and that he accidentally set the fire that scarred his brother, and his brother is presumed to be dead. And Paul Bearer is telling him that no, he is alive. And leading up to it, all the way up to September 1997, even that Raw right before Ground Zero, they kind of subtly introduce Kane, because there's a part where Paul Bearer comes on the screen and he says, "Your brother Kane is coming. You, Undertaker, are gonna burn in hell. You'll burn in hell. And as he's saying this, the red lights of Kane are coming down, signaling that he's coming. The fire that they showed up, the pyro, all these little hints that the character of Kane is coming. So they hinted at it before he came, which leads us to the first Hell in a Cell, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. And Undertaker has Shawn Michaels beaten. He slams a steel chair right over his head. All he has to do is tombstone him. It's over. The lights go out. We hear the organ, and it's Kane, this red monster with this jagged lines across his face on the mask. It almost looks this leather mask. It looked iron sometimes the way they shot it. And here he comes. He rips the door off the hinges, tombstones the Undertaker, and gives Shawn Michaels the win. Nobody had ever really laid out Undertaker like that. And then weeks on end, he calls out, he says that every superstar that Kane beats is on your head, Undertaker. Paul Bearer says this. Which leads us to Royal Rumble 1998, where Undertaker has an alliance with Kane. But Kane turns on him and costs him the casket match. And Shawn will go on to face Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14. Not before, though, Paul Bearer and Kane lock The Undertaker in the casket, set fire to it, and we do not see The Undertaker for weeks on end until like the middle of March, when the lightning bolt comes down and he is resurrected, and it will now be Kane and The Undertaker. These are such great moments. They could look hokey today, but as a child watching them, you were just infatuated with these characters, these heaven and hell type characters, for me at least. And they have a part where Kane burns everything. He burns a man on fire. Now it looks kind of hokey, but at the time you bought it. And a lot of people did buy it. And his return to say that he's going to face Kane is awesomely done. So that brings us to WrestleMania 14. And this was, I wouldn't say it's one of the greatest matches, but for me, this was my first like real pay-per-view match of paying attention. The first real image I ever saw of really WWE in 1998 was really Ken Shamrock beating the hell out of The Rock and just beating him to the point where he's bleeding and everything there, which leads us into Kane and The Undertaker. And I told you about, Kane tombstones Pete Rose, and then The Undertaker comes in. He's got that long flowing cape, and the way Kane just beats on him. There's points in the match where he has him beat and he lifts him up as he wants to continue to inflict pain on him. So Kane had the man beat, and he continued. One of my favorite spots in the match is when The Undertaker dives over the ropes and Kane catches him and throws him onto the table, onto the Spanish announce table. And he's just like beaten, and like nobody's ever, and JR is at his peak selling this. And then we come to the part where Undertaker tombstones Kane, and Kane kicks out. Now, at this point, no one has ever kicked out of The Undertaker's tombstone. Then he tombstones him again. He kicks out. Jim Ross is like, what is he going to take? This man, he's a monster. And then he does a clothesline off the top, which you rarely saw The Undertaker do. So he's pulling out all the stops. Then a third tombstone, and he hooks the leg. And Kane kicks out right at the 3. And it barely beat Kane. And then Kane demolishes him. So to me, this is what I imagine. This, to me, is Undertaker. This type of character. And then we have the Inferno match, which is not one of my favorite matches, but it's a good match, which has, you know, Kane getting burned. Which leads us to the Highway to Hell, which Kane becomes champion for a day. The Undertaker costs Austin the title, and Kane is now champion. But the next night on Raw, Kane loses the championship back to Austin, which then leads us to a triple threat match where Undertaker wins, but he's dressed as Kane. So it's Undertaker versus Austin at the Highway to Hell. And this is all these different twists to the storyline. And then we have Undertaker and Austin facing Kane and Mankind, who won the tag titles, and now Taker and Austin are tag champions. And they hadn't really, this wasn't overdone at this time. And then they eventually lose it, but Kane and the Undertaker align. And this is the first time we see these two forces align, and they are just built up as like the most destructive force we've ever seen in the World Wrestling Federation at the time. So these are my favorite moments of them. And at this point in time, Undertaker is becoming more and more evil as he comes along. And now Austin does defeat Taker, but at the next pay-per-view, it is a triple threat match against Austin, except for Austin, the Undertaker and Kane cannot pin each other. They can only pin Austin. So it's basically a 2-on-1 match. And they take the title from Austin. Which leads to Judgment Day, where Austin is the ref and he refuses to count either one of them, which brings us to a tag tournament. But in that match, Undertaker turns on Kane and aligns with Paul Bearer, and this begins the Ministry of Darkness character of the Undertaker, as he gives a promo and he says that I am the one who set fire to them. Now I'm telling you this because these are my favorite memories of the Undertaker character. Now we'll get to some of my favorite matches soon enough, but I'm going to take you through because we're getting Ministry of Darkness. Undertaker is my favorite persona of the Undertaker. So the Undertaker faces Austin after he hits Austin in the head with a shovel and costs him the title match, because Austin was about to regain his title again the next night from The Rock. But at this point, Undertaker has cost him that. So Austin is focused on Undertaker. And the only way Austin can get into the Royal Rumble is if he defeats the Undertaker in a buried alive match. Now, on the go-home show before Raw, Undertaker hangs him on a symbol, and it's very, we've got a lot of religious iconography here, as the Undertaker has Steve Austin on his symbol, which is meant to resemble a cross. So in some ways he's crucifying Austin. And it's very demonic and it's very different. Now Austin buries the Undertaker alive. We don't see him for a while till like the middle of January, where he resurrects and he has his new army of the Acolytes, and Dennis Knight becomes Midian, and Paul Bearer is there, and he now has black hair, and he looks different. And Undertaker is now wearing this cloak, hooded outfit, as he is performing sacrifices, as he calls it. And this is where he becomes his most demonic. And then he becomes a feud with McMahon, which leads to him hanging Big Boss Man on the cell. So he has changed his hair. Now he's meant to kind of look like Satan. He's got the hair in the back, and then he's got like a Beelzebub beard. And he's just meant to really look evil. And at the time as a kid, I'd never seen anything like this. Most people hated it, or were scared of it. I embraced it. I loved it. I thought that this was the coolest thing ever. I'd never seen anything like this. And they took it so far. Undertaker even learned Gaelic, or Latin, Latin. He learned Latin to talk. He would no denin, navra, navra. He would speak in tongues in some ways. And it was very just different, which led to him feuding with Austin throughout the year. And he does take the title from Austin for a couple of weeks, and Austin regained the title back in my hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina, where I was there to see that. And that was an interesting turn of events. And then The Undertaker loses a First Blood match to Austin, which in some ways you could say they've went full circle, because it was a year ago Undertaker who opened up Austin. And now we are here in July of 1999, and it is Austin getting his revenge on The Undertaker. Now, The Undertaker forms an alliance with Big Show, which doesn't last very long, and then he is hurt, and we don't see him for months on end. He was supposed to return at the Royal Rumble 2000, but he hurt his pectoral muscle, and he could not show up. So therefore, he couldn't make it to WrestleMania either, and he returns at Judgment Day with the cloak. Now, I tell you this story because The Undertaker, I had just gotten my first ever title belt, and it was the WCW title belt, and it said Sting on it, and I still have it to this day, right under this sofa that I am sitting on right now. And The Undertaker returns in the 60-minute Iron Man match between The Rock and Triple H. It was a great match, and they kind of messed up some cues. But he comes down on the motorcycle and stops everything, and he gets he was supposed to tombstone Triple H right in front of Shawn Michaels, but Shawn Michaels didn't get up in time, and the cues were off, and he kind of just saw him out of the back of his head. So the whole idea was supposed to be Shawn sees him, he did tombstone Triple H, but did he do it to mess with The Rock? And that was the whole thing that was supposed to plan into the next month. But those are some of my favorite moments. That return of The Undertaker at Judgment Day was awesome. I never really liked the Biker Taker going forward. I always liked the satanic character that he was. But those are my... that is The Undertaker to me. The satanic character. He was never, for me, as strong as he was then. Now, he didn't have the best matches, but storyline-wise, the satanic Ministry of Darkness character was my favorite iteration of The Undertaker. And with that, when we come back, I will talk about some of the matches, some of my favorite matches. So, as always, stay tuned. My favorite matches of The Undertaker. So, in no particular order, I'm just going to list off some of my favorites. Now, I talked about my favorite moments of him. Now I'm going to talk about my favorite matches, which are very different here. One is got to be, one of the matches is Kane versus The Undertaker, WrestleMania 14. Hell in a Cell, King of the Ring, 1998. I believe it's June 29th. No, it's June 28th. June 28th, 1998. The Undertaker versus Mankind in the infamous Hell in a Cell. This is one of my favorite matches. Angle versus Kurt Angle versus The Undertaker at No Way Out, 2006. CM Punk versus The Undertaker, 2013, WrestleMania 29, which I was there. Taker versus Shawn Michaels 2 at WrestleMania 26. Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, Hell in a Cell, Bad Blood. Bret Hart versus The Undertaker, SummerSlam 1997. The Undertaker versus Triple H, 2011, WrestleMania 27. So those are some of my favorite matches. So I'm going to go through them. With Kane versus The Undertaker, I pretty much talked about what I liked about it. It's one of my first instances of watching the WWF at the time. And Kane and The Undertaker, the Heaven and Hell dynamic was so different and cool. And the 3 tombstones and the way they set it up, I just love the way it's laid out. It's laid out for Kane to just destroy The Undertaker. And at the time, you never really saw The Undertaker really take a beating like that. Just to see Kane do that, that was unique. The Hell in a Cell with the Undertaker versus Mankind at King of the Ring 1998. This match is special to me. I mean, it took me a long time to track this match down. I had to I had to search high and low to find this match, because this was a hard match to find. I think I spent like $40 on it. Yeah, June 28, 1998. I spent like $40 to $50 ordering it, because it wasn't part of like the WWF home video collection that you could just get at the store. You had to order it. I think I ordered it from Blockbuster and had it delivered, because we didn't really have Amazon back at that time. And this was a VHS that I still have and I treasure to this day. Although now we have the WWE Network, which has all this. And this match was like, you'd never seen anything like this. The Undertaker comes out, they start on top of the cell. Undertaker throws him off the cell. At the time, I was kind of like, wow, I think that would have been cool for Kane, because it would have given him a really unique look. But, the way Undertaker did it, just, wow. To me, this was the beginning of him just coming off as evil, because he just seemed like a monster for what he just did to Mankind. Throwing him off the cell and him hitting that thing. And Undertaker says that he had an out-of-body experience. He said time stood still when he watched it. He said it took forever. He said he was watching himself up there as he was falling. So that's an interesting dynamic to it. Now, when he comes back up, apparently he was supposed to choke slam him, but he was going to kind of like roll out, and they were going to fight all the way down into the cell. But the little springs came off like immediately. So when Undertaker choke slams him, he just goes straight through the cell, and when he hits, it sounds like a gunshot, and that's where he goes. Well, that's where we get the infamous call from Jim Ross. Well, somebody stop the damn match. Enough's enough. And I'll always hear that. And then, he comes down and they wrestle another like 10 minutes. And we get the thumbtacks. And Mankind gets chokeslammed onto the thumbtacks. And then he gets tombstoned. So and Taker gets busted open as well. So there's blood and all this stuff, and you just never. So I wanted this tape so bad, because when you saw that, the replays, I wasn't buying the pay-per-views at the time. So when you saw that replay of how he did that, you were like, wow. And then I remember watching it at, I think, my grandmother's house, because the Blockbuster had it. You could rent it, and that was the first thing. I was like, I'm renting that, I am watching that. And seeing that match, it was just like, wow. And then you had, Kane and Austin losing the title. It was such a monumental pay-per-view, I thought. To me, it's one of my favorites, just for those 2 matches alone. Just amazing stuff. So for me, Hell in a Cell 2 will always just have a special place in my heart. Kurt Angle versus The Undertaker, No Way Out 2006. At this time, Kurt Angle had just gone through this renaissance from 2005. He made Shawn Michaels tap out at WrestleMania 21. And here we're coming up on WrestleMania 22, and Kurt was the man here. And Kurt Angle and Taker had just an amazing match. I mean, I don't really like the finish so much, but it works. But it's such a, at this point in time, Undertaker was really transforming into a worker, into somebody you'd want to see just for the match, not just the spectacle, which he always had the spectacle, but now he was become the guy who could work a mat wrestling match. And a technical type of match. And this is great match. CM Punk versus The Undertaker, 2013, WrestleMania 29. I was there with my buddy at the time. He's still my friend. And we were sitting there, and when The Undertaker came out, his entrance, I looked at him, and I was just like, this is what we both kind of had the same idea it's like, this is what we paid to see, was this entrance, and him coming up from like the whole city landscape that they had, and him just walking down there with that, crypt keeper hood over his, head, and him walking down there, and then CM Punk facing him, and he had the Living Color played him to the ring, and it was just such an awesome spectacle, and it was a great match. CM Punk and Taker had a great, and this is probably the last great WrestleMania match Undertaker had. And it just, wow, CM Punk, you thought maybe he could win. And then, he puts the Anaconda Vice, and Taker sits up, looks at him, and comes out of it, and then he tombstones him, and it's like, wow, good stuff. Such good stuff. Great match. Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 26. The second match. I like the second match better because I thought it had a better build. WrestleMania 25 had a good, okay build, but they kind of just got to it at in March. They had 3 weeks of build. I didn't like that. Also, I didn't like that it didn't close the show. To me, it hurt the match for me. Plus, I knew Shawn was kicking out at WrestleMania 25. I just knew it. I could feel it. When that came, I just knew it. Everybody says they were shocked there, but I was like, this looks like a good place for The Undertaker to kick out, for Shawn Michaels to kick out of The Undertaker's tombstone. And I was right. It's still a good match, but it didn't have the pomp and circumstances I wanted. Now, WrestleMania 26 had a great build because Shawn Michaels was fighting so hard to get in to have this match with Undertaker, and Undertaker kept saying no, and he finally screws him at No Way Out, where the Undertaker got burned, and apparently we found out on the Broken Skull thing, just a side note, that he had told him that the flames are coming too close to him, and then he burned him. As he's sitting in the pod, he said he better be gone when I come there. And that was pretty much the end of that pyro guy. He said he didn't want to say his name. So he knew his name. So Shawn Michaels did everything to get this match. And they had this great build-up. They had Placebo over running up that hill. Great video package. One of my favorite video packages that just set the tone for this match. How important it was. And Shawn Michaels is willing to put his career on the line. And I think this is just for me, it's a better match because it has that caveat of this is the end of Shawn Michaels' career if he doesn't get it done. And my favorite moment is the jumping tombstone. He slaps him, and so Undertaker finishes him off with a jumping tombstone. He's never done it again. And bam, that was it. Such good storytelling. I love WrestleMania 26 match. I know I'm in the minority there. If I'm going to say my favorite Taker versus Shawn, it's going to be the next match that I'm going to talk about, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, Hell in a Cell 1, Bad Blood, the debut of Kane. This is such a well-worked match. You got Shawn trying to get away from the Undertaker. He can't. He's in the cell. And Taker finally has his hands on Shawn, which had been built up for the summer. So finally they're locked in the cell. And nobody can help Shawn. He's there. So Taker's got it, and you weren't used to seeing this kind of blood. And Shawn blades like Ric Flair, and he, gets catapulted into the cell, and then he gets rammed into the cell, and you just feel like Shawn is just getting pulverized by him. And then they're on top of the cell, and Taker, press slams him on the cell, and then he kicks his leg, hand, and he takes the table bump, and Taker throws him back in the ring, and he choke slams him, and then he picks him up and he choke slams him from the top of the rope, and then he takes the steel chair and he gives him the hardest steel chair shot you've ever seen. Boom, right in his head. And he's just dead. And he calls for the tombstone. The lights go out. And I already talked about this. Kane comes out and tombstones him. And we're off to the races on that. But what a great match. That is, to me, that's a 5-star match. Terrific match. And that is the definitive Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels match to me. And always will be. Second, Taker versus Shawn 2. And then Taker versus Shawn 1, and then Royal Rumble 2007 wasn't bad either. The tease. The next match I'm going to talk about, Bret Hart versus The Undertaker, SummerSlam 1997. If Bret Hart doesn't win, he will never wrestle in the United States again. So in some ways, Bret Hart was on. I didn't see this live as I wasn't really a fan yet. I was kind of becoming a fan. But I love some of the spots in here. We have Bret Hart actually doing the sharpshooter on the ring post, which he'd never done before. Taker had a long run with this since WrestleMania, and Shawn costs him the title, which does lead to, this match ends up leading to Bad Blood. But it's a well-worked match, and the crowd in New Jersey just wanted to see Bret Hart get killed. And Bret Hart was just at his technical best. And you saw Taker could, hang. Some people like the One Night Only in England. That's another great match. I wanted to pick one, so I picked SummerSlam 97. The last match I'm going to talk about is The Undertaker versus Triple H, 2011 WrestleMania 27. I like this match because you never saw Undertaker so wounded. He's just beaten so bad. And I'm just like, how is he going to win? Like, you kind of thought this was the end of the streak. I didn't think... I did think he would probably kick out of the tombstone. I wasn't sure. That was a really well-worked spot. I like that. But, the beating he took was just, wow, monumental. And then he wins finally with the Hell's Gate, the Go-Go Plata. But since we can't call it the Go-Go Plata, it's called the Hell's Gate. I thought that was a terrific match. And the build to the next one is good, but I thought this was a better match overall. It was just, really. And the whole storyline of, at the end of this match, Taker couldn't get up to raise his head. So that's, those are some of my favorite matches of The Undertaker. So, when we come back, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite songs from The Undertaker. And we'll be back. Alright, so music. Let's talk about music. So looking back at WWE Undertaker from the Vault, I like his debut entrance. That theme is interesting. The Funeral March, the second track on there, is really good. I'll always be partial to the Graveyard Symphony version 2, which is what he used at Bad Blood, and he used that at WrestleMania 14, that thunder and then him coming. Dark Side, where they added the electric guitar. I like that. It added a different dynamic. I like the slowed down version of it. Dark Side version 2. One of the things we got this week with the release of Uncaged 14, which is a lot of Jim Johnson's unreleased tracks. They gave us Buried Souls, The Undertaker, and this is the track he used when he came out at WrestleMania 15 to face the Big Boss Man in Hell in a Cell. And it's interesting because this one has him speaking. It's a very slowed down version, a very long intro. And then at the end of the intro he says, "Accept the Lord of Darkness as your Savior." Now they quickly tried to take that away, even though he's saying the same thing in Latin. But they finally gave us this track, which I love. Plague of Evil is another version we got, and then we get the Lord of Darkness, which is his Ministry of Darkness version in the arena. It's a little bit faster paced. That's what he probably used throughout his title run with Austin and stuff. I like that. That's one of my favorites. I like the Dead Man one, the kind of remixed version that they've kind of given him throughout the whole years. I like the Kid Rock American Badass. That album was coming out at the time, so he was using that song. Then he used Rollin'. I always liked American Badass better because I just thought it was a better song for him, and it's just a little bit more powerful. Rollin's good, but the Kid Rock one works, which is weird. I'm saying something good about Kid Rock. They did the Johnny Cash, "Ain't No Pain, let my..." And I like that with the chains, like he's walking from the dead to come out. I like that version. So those are some of my favorite versions of the Undertaker tracks. But yeah, I really enjoy. Let's talk a little bit. So yeah, I've told you some of my favorite moments of the Undertaker. I've told you some of the things. So lasting memories. As I told you, I didn't really like the send-off. I thought it was okay. There's some good parts of it, but I just thought it was overdone. For me, the Broken Skull Sessions 2 is the send-off for me, and then the Last Ride, and the Boneyard match, which I wasn't a great fan of, but now thinking about it now in retrospect, I appreciate it. So yeah, wow, 30 years this man has had a career in WWF. He has come from, he was in the Hogan era, the Bret Hart and Shawn era, the Austin era, the Brock Lesnar era, the Batista and John Cena era, now the Roman Reigns era, actually I'm skipping one, the CM Punk and Daniel Bryan era, the Roman Reigns era. I mean, he's been through all these different eras. He's been the stalwart of the World Wrestling Entertainment or World Wrestling Federation. To us, it'll always be a federation. Entertainment just sounds stupid, but oh well, at least they got us back the F for the old footage, because that would have been awful. But yeah, this character's... I mean, one year I went as him for Halloween in the Ministry. I mean, just the Undertaker's been part of my life for a long time. So to see him say it's over, it's bittersweet in some ways. But I think it's time. He's been doing it for a long time. He said he was going to be the one to end his career, and he got to end it on his own terms. Yeah, as I said, I love the Ministry Undertaker. If I ever get to interview the Undertaker, I will interview him about the Ministry Taker. Nobody talks about that with him. And I just think that was a very unique storyline. that they've never been able to repeat. They've never wanted to go that far. Which, you know, the Attitude Era to me was all about breaking those boundaries that were set up with the 80s. And here they were just like everything. Nothing is off limits. So yes, so to the Undertaker, I say thank you. Thank you for all the matches. Thank you for all the moments. Thank you for always trying to do the right thing. I mean, the only time I think I could ever really disagree with him completely is maybe the DDP situation, but I don't even know if that's was part of, if that was his decision. It could have been Vince McMahon's decision, but yes, what a career. The end of the Undertaker in WWE. Well, I want to say thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I tried to explain to you the Undertaker to me and some of my favorite moments and some of the things I didn't like, why I didn't like this send-off. But I do respect the Undertaker, and I want to say thank you once again. And I will see you next time on the DMF.